What matters to the kids matters to the safety of a child. Welcome to the show. Last season or two, we focused in on a child who was who was killed by eating a piece of plastic. This child was special needs, and ever since then, there has been fights after fight after fight to get a new law passed to make sure that all schools are now required to purchase anti-plastic choking devices. So what's the scoop here? And what's been going on ever since? Here's Chris Papps.
You've read the bill. Brian Levy never imagined what happened to his son in 2019 could now help change Maryland state law.
It's a difficult thing in your head to balance between where you wish you were versus where you are.
When Levy first spoke with Project Baltimore 7 months ago,
I'm asking them to do the right thing, our governor and our county executive to do the right thing.
he wanted to raise awareness and help improve the safety of special needs students in school. What he got was this bill intended to save lives that bears his son's name, Bowen Levy.
It should be something that I'm proud of, right? Because when this goes through, hopefully it'll be something that always remind people that that's the positive piece of it.
The Bowen Levy Airway Clearing Device Act, if passed, would mandate all public schools in Maryland obtain at least one airway clearing device for use by the school nurses or any other school personnel who receive training. In November 2019, Bowen Levy died because Anne Arundel County Public Schools failed to keep him safe. Bowen, according to his IEP, or Individualized Education Program, was mandated to have a full-time one-to-one aide while at school. But the school system did not hire one. And while at school in the fall of 2019, the 17-year-old put a rubber glove into his mouth and choked on it. He died 5 days later.
No one saw it. The aid would have prevented it from being in his mouth.
In 2022, the family received a $2.5 million settlement from the school system and a promise the district would release staffing numbers for the district's 3 special needs schools. But when Fox 45 News obtained the updated 2025 numbers, we found staffing levels at those schools were getting worse. As Fox 45 kept investigating staffing concerns within special education, we found many Maryland schools, when writing IEPs, had largely stopped using the phrase dedicated one-to-one aid and replaced it with adult support. Experts say this helps schools reduce liability if something goes wrong.
If you put dedicated, that person really, truly has to have it. If you don't put that down, there's your loophole.
Fox 45 also exposed how Prince George's County Public Schools appears to have violated federal law by not providing one-to-one aides for up to 80 students who were required to have one. Yet no one took responsibility.
It's never anybody's fault. Where's the culpability?
In response to Project Baltimore's reporting, to help make schools safer for special needs students, Baltimore County Delegate Rick Metzger introduced into the state legislature the Bowen Levy Airway Clearing Device Act.
We need to help our children.
Push the plunger. The air will vent out the side.
Airway clearance devices typically cost around $70. Opponents argue the devices can delay rescue because the package needs to be opened, whereas the Heimlich maneuver is immediate aid.
Yes.
But Levy says the devices are not the first option, but rather a last resort to save a child's life.
What does it mean to you to have Bowen's name attached to this bill?
It is just the worst thing in the world, obviously. But having said that, if this bill does what I hope, which is enables the schools to have another resource at hand that may help children that otherwise would not have that, then it's the greatest win for him in the world.
The 2026 legislative session in Annapolis begins on January 14th. The Bowen-Levy Airway Clearing Device Act has been pre-filed. If passed, it would take effect on July 1st, 2026. Project Baltimore will be in Annapolis following this bill as it makes its way through the legislature. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
And we'll let you know what happens if it does. On our next season, when we do season 11, when we do season 10, we're going to give you some updates on the story. So, if anything happens, we'll let you know. Now, I'll make it short. I think this law is a good idea, but for them to spend $70 for each, it's just, it only takes you seconds to open a package, get a key, get a little knife, and just open it, put it in, you're good to go. Everyone has a problem with it because of the package. So, we'll let you know what happens on a future episode. Next, we showed you a. Next, we talked about the officer who was accused of tax evasion. Now there's more evidence to the story. Chris Pabst explains, and still ahead, Canyon of Death. Mike Taibbi's story about murder on the mountain. Stay with us. I got a question for you. Would you ever imagine as a school employee being told, you got a gun charge, during the weekdays you'll be in school, but on weekdays you're in jail. We'll talk to the court and we'll figure something out. We'll cut you some slack. Well, there is one teacher which you're about to meet, which you're about to hear from. The report says that he was not only arrested and being sent to jail, but he was allowed to be employed by the school district. Now, what's going on here? One mother, which you're about to meet, says, the buck stops here. Once again, Chris Pabst.
How concerned are you with what is currently happening in Harford County schools?
I am very concerned.
Susie Scott is with Harford County Moms for Liberty, a public education watchdog group.
We are in a culture of cover-up and a crisis in our schools.
Scott, whose children attended Harford County schools, says what Project Baltimore has learned about this man, Kareem Thomas, shows there's a problem with who the district is hiring to work with students.
Harford County talks about safety and security being a priority, and I don't see that happening.
In 2019, according to state records, Thomas was arrested, charged with 19 counts of theft. All 19 charges were placed on the STEP docket, meaning the charges remained on file, but were inactive. In 2023, according to Harford County Public Schools, Thomas was hired as a classroom helper at Edgewood Elementary School. The following year, in 2024, while employed by HCPS, Thomas was arrested again, charged with multiple firearm violations. Thomas was found guilty in April 2024 of illegally possessing a loaded handgun in a vehicle and received 60 days in jail, followed by 18 months of probation. At this point, Thomas has been arrested twice, once for theft and once for a gun violation. After his conviction, according to court documents in May of 2024, Thomas began serving his 60-day jail sentence on weekends, but on weekdays, despite a gun conviction. He remained employed at Edgewood Elementary.
It's very frightening. We have to protect our children, and you can have another job, but not around our children.
Then, this past July, Thomas was arrested again, charged with illegally possessing a shotgun. Even as he awaited trial following his third arrest, Thomas kept his job at Edgewood for 5 months. According to Harford County Public Schools, as of last week, Thomas is no longer employed. You blame the superintendent.
I do, because it's his culture, his policies, his whole reason for fundamentally transforming our once wonderful school system into what it is today.
Where our processes fall short, we are correcting them.
Dr. Sean Bolson is the superintendent of Harford County Public Schools. On Monday, he posted this video online explaining that in a recent personnel matter, the district did not adequately address his expectations for timely action, oversight, and judgment. Bolson does not mention any employee by name, but he promised action.
Where expectations are unclear, we're strengthening them. And where accountability is needed, it will be applied.
Dr. Bolson's contract expires on June 30th, 2026. Scott says her group, Moms for Liberty, is calling for Bolson's contract not to be renewed.
The buck stops with the superintendent, and he's making excuses for the hiring processes in our school system. Somebody has to take accountability, and it has to start with him.
Are you a Hartford County Schools parent who is concerned about the culture within the school system? We want to hear from you. Call our hotline, send me an email, follow us on social media, head to foxbaltimore.com to follow our progress. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
So what do we say on this? Well, first off, you can't do that. If you have an employee of the school district who's serving jail time, you don't put them back on employment, and then, okay, you can't do that. You can't give teachers special treatment just because you're superintendent. What you need to do is to apologize to all the parents and say, hey, we made a mistake here with this issue here, and we're going to take corrective action, and we're sorry. Sorry's not going to be enough, because the parents out there are going to say, we don't want him to renew his contract, because if they renew the contract, we're going to go back to the same thing that's been happening over and over again until this matter gets taken up before the court. Unless someone steps up and says, hey, the buck stops here, you're the one that's blamed. What do? You had that teacher right there had a criminal record, and yet you chose to allow him to be in school. Well, it's just outrageous.
As a news.
We'll keep following this story on a future episode. We'll let you know what happens. Coming up, a story that involves murder, surviving, and one community left with anger and finding out who might be the killer. Mike Taibbi has the story. Stay with us. Now we're going to take it to New Mexico, where we ask the question: what's the difference between mercy and murder? It involves some people who were lost in the wilderness, but was it survival or was it murder? It would leave the whole state of New Mexico and the families and the attorneys and a court system to decide which is which. Here's Mike Taibbi.
It is seductive in its beauty and terrifying in its details. A vast place that isn't tamed and may never be. The high desert of sharp-spined cactus and blazing sun that covers much of the southwestern United States. Every plant here, every animal, is locked in a daily battle to survive in a land with virtually no water at all. And to those stories of life and death, add one more, about two young men, the closest of friends. They hiked into this desert together. Only one made it out alive. But was theirs a story of deep friendship and the ultimate sacrifice?
Certainly the whole ordeal has been devastating.
Was it the most implausible murder you ever heard of?
Things just don't add up for me.
Or was it just the cruelty of the desert, claiming one more victim?
The more you think about it, the more confused you get.
The fatal journey started in Massachusetts. Two close friends, both college-educated and both at turning points in their careers, headed out for one last carefree adventure, a cross-country road trip. David Coughlin, 26 years old, planned a westward drive to California to find a new job and in a year to start graduate school. Coughlin worked for the town government of Wellesley, Massachusetts.
Dave was, I think, one of the finest examples you can find around of youth today.
Coughlin's traveling buddy was Rafi Kadikian, 25 years old, David's friend for the last 5 years. Kadikian worked for a financial services company, but he also had a love of writing and of the open road. Last year, after working as an intern at the Boston Globe, he wrote a 2-part series on his own cross-country Jeep tour. Jerry Morris edited the piece.
He was thinking about leaving his job. He wasn't happy with that. And I basically told him, I tell anybody that wants to be a travel writer that you make no money in it, and it's a very risky field.
Coughlin and Kadikian met when both were in college. It's been reported they talked on the phone almost every day, swapped jokes via email, biked, snowboarded, went on double dates together. So no one who knew them was surprised when David suggested that Rafi take a vacation and join him on his cross-country road trip. They left Boston on July 30th. The journal they kept reportedly places them in Nashville August 1st, then Memphis, where they visited Graceland, the mansion where Elvis lived and died. Then on August 4th, 6 days into their trip, Coughlin and Kadikian rolled up to the entrance of Carlsbad Caverns National Park in southern New Mexico. Most people come here to visit the famous caverns, but the two friends had a different adventure in mind, to hike into the desert and camp in the backcountry, where few tourists go. Their permit was for 1 night. Mark Messia is the head of law enforcement for the park.
The person that issued the permit read off about 10 different items that we recommend that people do to prepare for this trip.
The first, last, and most frequent recommendation, water, for there is no reliable source of water in the Carlsbad backcountry. Park brochures tell backpackers to bring a gallon of water per person per day. That may sound like a lot, but it would have been especially critical for these two men freshly arrived in their air-conditioned car from their lives in Massachusetts.
Their bodies weren't ready for it.
Dr. Ken Iserson is a professor of emergency medicine and a veteran of dozens of desert rescues.
They're both city boys, and northeast cities at that. How quickly could they have become acclimated to the conditions where they were?
They would not have been acclimated whatsoever.
The rangers tell people what they'll need in the backcountry, but they don't check to see that they actually pack it.
He signed the permit and they were on their way.
Investigators would find the two men had carried in much less water than had been recommended. Did they miscalculate? Were they overconfident? Did they fail to take the warnings about water seriously? A friend who went four-wheeling with Kadikian says that would have been out of character for him.
He wasn't really a thrill seeker. We didn't get into anything dangerous that, where anyone could get hurt.
Whatever the reason, the two men walked into an extreme environment extremely unprepared.
They didn't have the water. They didn't have the knowledge.
Sometime on the afternoon of August 4th, David Coughlin and Rafi Kadikian drove along this dirt road, parked at this trailhead, and hiked into a place called Rattlesnake Canyon. Their permit was for 1 night, but they would be gone 4 nights before anyone came looking for them. And by then, for one of the men, it would be too late. Were they simply overmatched by the desert, or did something more sinister happen?
We do our best to prepare folks. We can't take into account everything that might happen to them, including murder.
Including murder. So which one was it? Which one was the survivor? And which one was murdered? Was it murder or was it mercy? When we come back, part 2 of Mike Taibbi's report, and then we're going to hear, and then later on you'll probably hear the other side of the story from one of the survivors. Stay with us. Returning to our story, you've heard partial story about the two friends that went hiking, but one of them made it out alive, the other survived while the other one died. Which one was it? You might hear from one of the survivors, and you hear from the police officer. So was it death or was it mercy? Which one survived and made it out alive, and which one was murdered? Again, Mike Taibbi.
David Coughlin and Rafi Kadikian hiked into the wilderness of Carlsbad Caverns National Park sometime late in the day on Wednesday, August 4th. Daytime temperatures reached the high 90s. Almost no shade anywhere. The two men had no map, no compass, and perhaps less than a gallon of water between them. Their permit was for just one night, but they did not hike out Thursday, or Friday, or Saturday. On Sunday, park rangers launched what they thought could be a lengthy search. Mark Messia was the ranger in charge.
How long did the search go on before he was found?
About an hour.
It was a short search because it was a short distance from the trailhead to the campsite in Rattlesnake Canyon, less than a mile and a half. Maybe 30 minutes walk on a city street, and 45 or so down this rocky trail.
Ranger Lance Matson was the first one on the scene, and I believe Kadikian said, "Hey, did you bring me some water?" And Lance said, "Yes, sir, I did," and then gave him some water. And Kadikian also asked, "Well, what took you so long?"
According to the report by the Sheriff's Department, the ranger found Rafi Kadikian lying inside a tent. At first, he saw no sign of David Coughlin.
Lance knew from the permit that there were two people signed out for this area. So he said, "Well, where's your buddy?"
Kadikian's answer staggered the ranger.
And he pointed over here and said, "Well, he's over there, I killed him."
Just said it straight out.
Said it straight out, and pointed to what appeared to be a grave. There were a mound of rocks just a few feet from us here.
Ranger Messia arrived a little while later. He saw a campsite in obvious disarray.
The site was not what you might expect in the backcountry. There were plates here, a sleeping bag here. Things were really scattered throughout this whole site here.
And Messia and the other rangers all noticed this at the site, the letters SOS spelled out in rocks, with the last S not quite finished, as though whoever made it simply ran out of energy for the task.
This scene had all the elements of what appeared to be a desperate survival situation.
Kadikian was started immediately on a fluid IV, and then airlifted to Carlsbad Medical Center. A source close to the case told us the sodium level in his blood was measured at 174, dangerously high, close to lethal if true, according to desert survival expert Dr. Ken Iserson.
174 is severe dehydration. It's not frequently seen. It's generally seen in people who are unconscious.
Rafi Kadikian did not reveal much in the few words he spoke to the rangers who rescued him. But it turns out he, and apparently David Coughlin too, wrote hundreds of words in the journal they kept as their ordeal was unfolding. Kadikian's attorney sent us excerpts from that journal, some of them very disturbing. The two men were in trouble almost from the start, less than a day after they set out for Rattlesnake Canyon that Wednesday afternoon. The journal says the two started back Thursday morning, the very next morning, but couldn't find the entrance to the trail leading to the car. They retreated to the canyon to spend a second night. "We've got minimal water and have been eating cactus fruit. We need help," the journal said. But before falling asleep, they saw headlights in the near distance. The road was barely a mile away. On Friday, though, day 3, they never found the road but reached what seemed to be the farthest reaches of the park. "Nobody has come. We mustered all our strength. We had no food or water. Nobody has come." At the top of the page, "Help, help."
They were barely a mile and a half from the car. Doesn't sound like much to the lay. To the expert, what does it sound like?
It's forever.
Dr. Ken Iserson, who teaches emergency medicine at the University of Arizona, has worked on dozens of desert rescues.
When you're in a wilderness environment, you can be 100 yards from a road that you can't see, from water that you can't hear or see. You can be completely lost, and you can be in desperate shape.
It is fair to point out that our own team of 4 lost the trail briefly, both hiking into Rattlesnake Canyon and hiking out.
And you've got to realize that by the time you all were on it, hundreds of law enforcement feet had gone back and forth on that trail, so it was much better marked.
The journal entries for Friday show some optimism. In one note, apparently from Coughlin, "If and when we reach the car, we will go to the visitor center, then attempt to come back for gear, carefully." But by Saturday, day 4 in the wilderness, any optimism seems to have evaporated completely. Said one journal entry, "We were planning to die."
They may not have known that they were literally only steps from the trail, but they knew the trail, or at least they knew what it was like. They knew it would be narrow and hot and steep, and with the loose rocks that the footing would often be treacherous.
They knew several varieties of cactus could cut them to ribbons. That Saturday, that fourth day in the relentless sun, was, according to the journal, pure hell. We thought we had found the way and set out today, the entry read. Wasn't it? Returned to camp, started fire, and built shelter. And on another day of near triple-digit heat and no water, David Coughlin and Rafi Kadikian waited for the rescuers who did not come.
Dehydration for sure.
Absolutely.
Exhaustion from the heat for sure.
Mhm.
And if their condition worsened from heat exhaustion into potentially deadly heat stroke, when the body temperature climbs to 104, 105, 106 and higher, and critical organs start failing, the symptoms may not have been just physical.
I've had patients who were still hiking, but they were out of their head. They no longer had an awareness of their surroundings.
In the journal, narrative gave way to expressions of panic and desperation. One entry, "We will not let the buzzards get us alive. God forgive us." Another, "We don't know why no one came. We only had a one-night pass for Wednesday, and now it's Saturday." Although no national park guarantees rescue to backcountry hikers, Ranger Messia acknowledges the search could have started sooner. He says park officials at first thought the men had a 2-day pass. So even though rangers saw their car at the trailhead, they were not immediately concerned. But then, why wasn't the search started on Saturday, when the men were officially overdue?
Good question. I really don't have an answer for that.
There were a lot of journal entries that Saturday, many of them goodbye notes to friends and family in words devoid of hope. From David Andrew, presumably Coughlin, a message to a girlfriend. "I do not know what to do right now, but I am in utter agony, and I know you would understand. I love you so much. You will always be in my heart, and you will always have an angel standing by." From Kadikian to a girlfriend, "Do me a favor, cry once in a while. It'd be cool if now were one of those times." And to Mom and Dad and Grandma, "As far as I'm concerned, you guys did a damn good job. I hope you know that. I love you all very much. Never forget that. God has made my life decision for me. No more worries." And then the next day, day 5 without water, when the temperature would top 100 degrees, with both men unquestionably sick from the heat and maybe delirious, Rafi opened the journal and scrawled the following. "Sunday. I killed and buried my best friend today. Dave had been in pain all night. At around 5 or 6, he turned to me and begged that I put my knife through his chest. I did, and a second time when he wouldn't die. He still breathed and spoke, so I told him I was going to cover his face. He said, okay. He struggled, but died. I buried him with love, God and his family and mine. Please forgive me." Does the punishing, relentless heat explain David Coughlin's wish to die? Or Rafi Kadikian's willingness and ability to kill him? Or is this story really about something else entirely?
So is this really a case about, who died and who survived? And if so, would this person who killed him get a fair trial? The conclusion to the story when we come back. Stay with us. Well, we're now out of time. Because I'm probably not feeling too good. Because I'm probably not, because I don't feel myself. We're running out of time. I don't think we're out of time here, but tomorrow we're gonna conclude the story. Now, what does the murderer have? What is the killer of the survivor? What does the survivor have to say when he killed his best friend? Was it a mercy killing, or was it a case about no water, no accessories to survive the heat? You'll hear the other side of the story when the police talk with the survivor. You may talk with Dateline, but we'll see what happens tomorrow. Kenny and Death, Part 2. The conclusion to the story is tomorrow. So, with this in mind, that's on Friday. So, with this in mind, that's all for this issue of Give Me a Break Wednesday. We'll see you again for Give Me a Break Friday. All of us here at YouTube may give me a break. Stop bullying, speak up, concentration, not strength. No jaywalking unless you're in California. So always take care of yourself and each other. Look out to everyone else. Good night.